Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good.
I mean, could we ask for a better night? This is magnificent. My name is Ann Roth. I'm with the Key Biscayne Community Foundation. I'm on the board of directors. And the one thing that I love about the Key Biscayne Community Foundation is that we get to do things like this. We get to partner with people like Debbie Weinenkopf with the Poetry Share. And we're kicking off now the second year. We're so excited. So welcome to Poetry in the Parks. And I'm going to turn you over to our fearless leader.
Good evening. Hello. My first line was going to say, look at the full moon. So welcome. What a night. Thank you for being here. We are the Key Biscayne Poetry Share. This is season 2, Poets in Our Parks, where we are featuring famous Miami poets who have become my friends over the past year. I am Debbie Weinenkopf, the KB Poet. KB for Key Biscayne and KB for clipboard, because it's been said that if you walk around with a clipboard, people listen. The Poetry Share is about poetry and community connection. And we're so glad you're here to connect with us. We've got popcorn, healthy drinks, merch, poetry, and jazz. Is Biscayne Poet live? Now let me tell you about Oscar Fuentes. Oscar was born in Manhattan to immigrant parents from Honduras. Oscar is a seasoned multidisciplinary artist making waves from his base in Miami for over 3 decades. Dubbed the Biscayne Poet, Oscar has poured his heart into the arts, penning 10 captivating books, blending poetry and prose. Oscar made his mark in season 6, episode 10 of the reality TV show, The Real Housewives of Miami, an appearance that helped elevate his unique typewriter bespoke poetry to a national spotlight. Oscar was recognized by Mayor Daniela Levine Cava with the inaugural Miami-Dade Mayoral Poetry Commendation in recognition of his outstanding contributions to the county's literary art community. In his offbeat style, Oscar cruises around town in a vintage 1974 Dodge Dart, its trunk brimming with typewriters, while he sports a quirky typewriter tape mustache. Oscar and his Latin jazz trio. I would like to introduce them: Tani Alen on percussion, Karel Sanchez on bajo, Pavel Vitier on guitarra, y tres.
Thank you so much, Debbie. We're so happy to be here, and we're going to have some fun right now. I must revisit Manhattan soon. The Brooklyn Bridge awaits. The sound and smoke of the passing cars below me, under me. I must go. I love you. And although I don't recall ever meeting you, my parents, they swear that when I was just 3, I crawled on over through you, and into Brooklyn I went crying. I must revisit Manhattan. And from Brooklyn to Manhattan, I'm going to walk on the Brooklyn Bridge and put all of those myths to a test. And see if it's true that whenever you're walking through the middle towers, something bigger than you takes over your mind, and you feel like jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge. But first, I must walk into Manhattan. Before I get called into disappearance, I must revisit Manhattan. And with all my friends, we'll walk through those Gothic exits and entrances and see if it's true. He was last seen walking alone with her, not fearing her danger. Now the sun from tower to tower, the hammers. He would say to her, flirting and walking with Lady Death, and she would listen. Because yesterday in my verse, I heard the clappings of your bony palms, and you gave eyes to my song, and an edge to my tragic life. I will sing to you the flesh you don't have, your missing eyes, the red lips that used to get kisses. Today from here forth, my sweetness, death of mine, oh how good with you alone. With these blowing winds of Biscayne, my Biscayne. Yes, I feel my beloved barrio, my Biscayne. Story where I grew up. No man's land. About 115th Street, Northeast 2nd Avenue. Everyone's talking about Biscayne, about the boulevard, about the hard times they had. We had hard times, but we had good times too. Oh, I remember the summer. Summer was beautiful. Days were long. We had the ocean breeze on Key Biscayne Beach, Crandon Park, my favorite. To the left, we had Hustle Land. To the right, Biscayne Bay. Oh, I remember back in the 80s and the 90s, my dad used to work with this very friendly Italian contractor that lived here on Key Biscayne, and he had a contract with Sonesta Beach Hotel. And my dad did all kinds of work in Sonesta. And once in a while, I would tag along. This one time, driving over the MacArthur Causeway, I noticed all the little islands of Biscayne Bay surrounded with a pink fabric. And every morning that week, the little Oscar would ask his dad to slow down on top of that bridge just so he could see the pink around those islands. Ah, those were the days. We had the roaming ice cream truck. Remember the ice cream truck? All we needed was a nice cold soda, and we were refreshed. Oh, I remember those days. When I went home, my mother was beautiful. Our food was delicious. Rice and beans, that's also food. With some sweet plantains on the side. And dessert, for dessert we have flan. The sweetest tasting thing you ever want to try. Everything was beautiful to me. My beautiful Biscayne, my barrio, my beloved barrio.
Contigo yo me voy contigo a bailar mi son. Yo me voy pa' Biscayne, contigo yo me voy.
Oh, and when I drive my 1974 Dodge Dart down Biscayne Boulevard, I see the string of motel lights flickering, dancing in my rear view mirror. Oh, the boulevard and its curves and the Art Deco buildings also remind me of her. So I make a right on 36th Street. Take all the way down Julia Tuttle Causeway, all the way on top. I stop right there and I look over the city. My city. My Biscayne. We have Pavel Vitier Andres. So here I am, outside my house, catching some fresh air, right before my very eyes. Quietly, silently, 1,000 flowers are blooming all around. I brought back inside the house and even the floor is blooming. It's so unusual. New, tender, pink, moist. I give her a kiss and a hug, hello, and above her head, in a glass sky, the moon hangs blue and fragrant, as if hanging from some invisible branch. I point at the moon and say, look, our moon. She looks at the moon and smiles. And then she looks at me and I smile, melting inside. I'm in my room, she's sitting on my bed, I'm on the floor. My arms are on her legs, my head in her lap, and we're both quiet. Silence. I can hear my pulse. I feel that everything that defines me in space is melting, vanishing. I'm a crystal dissolving in her lap. For 1 second, her and my bed and the floor and the blooming flowers of our love shot through the sky and hit the moon with joy. We are one. All that is in me, with me, listening to the beating of my pulse and flying across the blessed second. I tried to tell her in stupid, confused, drowned words that I am a crystal, that is why the door is in me, and that's why I can hear how happy the chair is, but such nonsense comes out and I stop talking. I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed. So I tell her, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm talking such nonsense. Then she tells me, Oscar, what makes you think nonsense is bad? If they nurtured and cared for human nonsense the way they did with intelligence throughout the ages, then nonsense would be something of special value. For nonsense alone, Oscar, for what you did yesterday at the bay, I love you even more. She took my face, all of me, between her palms. She lifted my head up, sweet, sharp, white teeth, and then another smile. In the open space of my room, she was like a bee. She had both honey and a sting. There's a stupid smile in my face. I look into her eyes, now one, now the other, seeing myself in each. I'm tiny, minuscule, locked inside her talking eyes. And then more bees, lips, all the sweet pain of blooming. Inside each of us, there's an invisible metronome that's ticking away quietly. You never have to look at a clock to know the exact time to within 5 minutes, but our metronomes had stopped. And we didn't know how much time had passed by, and time had passed by. We only had 20 minutes, but minutes, what are they? Nothing but stumpy, short, little things that come so fast and quiet. We were now running. I had so much to tell her, all of myself, but the love letter I had written for her, but the beauty of my childhood, about my first day of elementary school, about my love for writing and for music, about my father and his love for bees.
Fueron tus manos o tu boca, fueron tus labios o tu voz, fue a lo mejor la impaciencia de tanto esperar tu llegada, mas no sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó, pero de ti me enamoré.
All right. A beautiful combination of poetry and traditional music. I wrote this poem in the middle of the pandemic, in isolation. And then it became an animated film, and it's titled Light. The fire truck made a right turn on my street. I kept my distance behind it. I was wondering whose house was on fire. No smoke. 1 block, 2 blocks. There was an ambulance parked outside my house. I heard other sirens in the area. The fire truck stopped right in front of my house. I parked, got off, and asked one of the firefighters what was burning. He said, no fire. Just a Hispanic male found dead in his living room. What house? The yellow one, he said, pointing at my house. At that time, 2 paramedics walked out of the front door with a bed on wheels, a body inside a black bag. Wait! I screamed and ran to take a look at the body inside the bag, my heart racing. I unzipped the bag slowly. I looked, and in slow motion, the memories of my life started playing in my mind's eyes, surreal like a Maya Deren film. And in every corner of my memories, I saw Lady Death following me with her mirror face in her long black dress, covering her feet, a slow key falling and spinning in the air, a distant drum, water dripping upon a stone, a yellow light flickering in a hallway, lonely, a green glass that gets confused with the floors, Lady Death again getting closer, slowly, her mirror face almost catching my reflection, the key again spinning and falling without landing, the distant drum, water dripping, light flickering, green glass floors, walls, her mirror face, key, water, drum, light, light. About all right.
And we have a poem about our community center written by Marilyn Miles, who inspires our seniors.
I'm just sort of a closet poet, but I'm out now. Sense of community. In 2004, the community center opened its door, and our lives were changed forevermore. In no time, it became our island's hub for residents to exercise, swim, or join a club. Let's take a tour of this amazing place, always beating at a fast pace. Use your senses to take it all in. Now follow me inside and we will begin. Hear the sound of children squealing with joy, or the grunts in the gym from a weightlifting boy. Hear the ping and pong from the pickleball, or the musical beat just down the hall. See the gathering of families filling the lobby as the seniors go upstairs to engage in a hobby. Watch the throngs of students enter after school. It's the place to be if you want to be cool. Smell the aroma of coffee that will make you drool, mixed with the whiff of chlorine from the pool, or the scent of the garden from flower arranging. So many activities, always changing. Taste a sweet treat from our little cafe, or a catered lunch on Senior Thursday. Savor the sandwiches at the civic meetings, or a lovely spread at the book club readings. And finally, feel the pulse of the gem that we built. Let it wrap you up like a community quilt. We planted this seed, and look how it's grown. And now a piece of history you all own. Thank you.
Contaminated by romance.
De cualquier maya sale un ratón, oye, de cualquier maya. De cualquier maya sale un ratón, oye, de cualquier maya.
It was a salsa dancing night in Washington, D.C. A night I will never forget. The trombone spoke my language. My feet listened happily. I had taken the metro to DuPont Circle. I was to meet her at 10:30 p.m. at a place called ESL Lounge on 18th Street. At the bar, the neon lights made her eyes a brighter blue. She ordered a Maker's Mark, and with my beer in hand, I could feel the salsa music moving my legs. 2 left feet. In the loudness, our eyes had loaded instances of exchange. Our telepathic eyes talking, the disco lights flashing. Through the room, room and onto the blue of her eyes, and dancing we laughed, and spinning our eyes would lock again, and in the shadows of the flash, the strangest and most beautiful feelings would happen to me. Smiling and sighing, feeling vulnerable and alive. Oh, the music was so loud and so nice.
De cualquier manera, sale un rato, oye, de cualquier manera. De cualquier manera, sale un rato, oye, de cualquier manera.
We only spoke through our eyes. And with each spin, we would say things to each other like, oh, I wish I wouldn't go back to Miami. Yeah, I wish you would stay a little longer. I feel so happy right now. Me too. You dance so well. So do you. I want to kiss you. I hope he kisses me. Nah, she would totally reject the kiss. So we kept on dancing. The last metro of the night just passed, and still we danced. Another spin, my hands around her waist, and another spin. I knew I would lose my flight.
De cualquier manera, sale un rato, oye, de cualquier manera. De cualquier manera, sale un rato, oye, de cualquier manera.
I knew there was a good chance I would never see her again. Another spin, pulling our bodies together at the beat of the Latin bass line. Time went by so quickly, felt so lucky. It all happened so fast. Then I snapped out. When she said, okay, good seeing you, bye-bye. We were on the sidewalk. And I said, oh, it was nice to meet you. Bye-bye. Flew back to my All right.
I implore you to support the arts, music, art, dance, theater, film, and poetry. They are the stuff that enriches our lives and uplifts us and makes life more beautiful and meaningful. Support the arts and artists whenever and wherever you can. But we're going to call now Joan Gil Blank and Frank Kaplan for some historical poetry.
Thank you guys for coming out for poetry in the parks on this beautiful night with this beautiful zephyr warm breeze. God made man frail as a bubble. God made love, love made trouble. God made the vine. Was it a sin that man made wine to drown trouble in? It's not fair to visit all the blame on Eve for Adam's fall. The most Eve did was display contributory negligee. Now, considering the jocularity and modernity and relative bawdiness of these two verses, you may be surprised to learn that the composer, a gentleman named Oliver Herford, was a product of the 19th century. He grapples here with morality and theology, sounding a bit postmodern, a little edgy and sly. Turning away from morality and theology, considering the season that we're in, why don't we try participatory democracy? The Platonic ideal of citizens invested in each other and in their community, taking reciprocal responsibility for each other's health, safety, and welfare. So with the election week recently passed, let's try this one, which is also from the 19th century. This is John Greenleaf Whittier, and it may be an apt theme. It's called Don't Quit. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and debts are high, and you want to smile but have to sigh, when care is pressing down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when he might have won had he just stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You might succeed with just another blow. Often the straggler is given up when he might have captured the victor's cup, and he learned too late when the night slipped down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of clouds of doubt. You can never tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your hardest hit. It's when the thing seems worse that you mustn't quit. For all the sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these: it might have been. So at a future Poetry in the Parks, we have a little thing worked up for drawing on the power of poetry in literature, but we'll save that for a later occasion. For now, I'm pleased to introduce the embodiment of the power of poetry in the person of our own Joan. And not just poetry, but high culture and arts of all sorts. Our historian, our polemicist, artist, curator, naturalist, conservationist, voice of conscience, polymathic chroniclers of all things, and nothing less than the chronicler of us and our little speck on this big planet, Key Biscayne. Joan, it's up to you.
As Poetry Shares continues to celebrate its own second decade, we are still honoring the Key Biscayne Community Center, giving back to those who actively and progressively nurtured and mentored members for 20 years, fulfilling much needed needs and dreams of all islanders with care and teaching, reaching out to each of us as individuals, couples, and groups with care and teaching. On teams and field trips in the arts and sciences, strengthening and rejuvenating our minds and bodies and self-esteem. For heaven's sakes, when a few years ago, during a contest to name the park where we are now gathered together, who knew the word paradise was a synonym for heaven, or vice versa, and also describes, according to Webster's and other dictionaries, paradise as an enclosed and or open garden or park. In case our smallest village park across from the fire department and City Hall, sited on our so-called island paradise, is appropriately and somewhat poetically named Paradise Park. During the magical hours when the sun set and the moon is visible, not far from the bay today, and the moon rises in the southwest quadrant, followed closely by the constellation Venus, depending on cloud coverage, and we're doing fairly well tonight. Take a look skyward, look up into the sky, and see if you can see Venus near the moon. Then, for heaven's sakes, take a look if it's not raining, which is not, and you will discover a kind of delightful island landscape, a tiny preserve here in the garden. And lovers of poetry and music tonight, a place where plants and trees are attended by village gardeners and where the legacy of earlier plant explorers on Key Biscayne and environmental protectors are stewards are historically celebrated along with the rich heritage of Key Biscayne. I can very vaguely see you out there, so hello. For those of us who came to Key Biscayne when we were in our 20s and in our 30s, the tropical planted trees, native and natural, along with those introduced from the Caribbean, African, and other global sources, was intriguing, and the environment was a challenge to live in and to learn. It taught us a few things that living on our island in South Florida will do. It changed our lives and finally raised up our self-esteem as we began to know ourselves better as we were growing up and teaching our children too. So now I'm going to just go through some quick things about growing up. It's called Here We Grow. Once I was a hibiscus, but now I am an evergreen. I used to be a perennial, but now I am an annual. I used to be a morning glory, but now I'm a night bloomer. Once I withered on the vine, now I fruit. Once I dangled my tendrils, now I root. So I'm going to read you a verse about a master gardener, because we have many on Key Biscayne. He was a master gardener, and he nurtured seeds of every kind throughout each season and all time. And indeed, he took mind of his human saplings and his plants, who or which he always knew would take a while to grow and finally to mature in style. Because as shamans, shrinks, and gardeners know, plants and people take their own good time to grow, which he always knew would take a while to grow and finally to mature in style. Because as shamans, shrinks, and gardeners know, plants and people take their own good time to grow. He knew not to expect an
instant harvest from a tender tendril or a shriveling sprout, seeming in need of a master gardener. He knew that with a reasonable measure of nurturing and care, the very best made plants and people grew in sun or shade, sometimes at intervals through fair nights or rainy days, according to their rhythms and their ways, and that by Jove and love and the master gardener, they'd found out what they'd already known, in and out of the garden, whether in community or alone, that they possess their own ability to change themselves and need no longer to be afraid of the unknown. That is a writer named MacIver, perhaps also a bagpiper, recently wrote, "We must cultivate our own garden and find the joy of doing it in our own hearts." Oh, that's not by MacIver, that's by John. That's your poem. That's it for Poetry Share Round 2. We'll see you for Round 3 in April? March. And thank you. Have a beautiful evening.
Yesterday I couldn't stop thinking about you. How you been and where you were, I didn't know. I remember faces, smiling and laughing. I remember your eyes. Oh, those lovely eyes of yours. I was a fool. Beautiful women have laid down with my books. Over my poems, they would let down their hair, but they were hardly aware of me. Where have they all gone to? The country road is nice and inviting, but it is not for me. Not anymore. Constantly I think of you. You who left behind your guitar and your beautiful self engraved in my mind. But the evil men have now set their eyes on you. All of you, the women I love, are no longer mine. The evil men are after them, and this is beyond my control. Without effort, I realize that a man constantly suffers. That his heart is as fragile as the feelings of a baby. That when involved with a woman he loves, his mind gets confused. He feels insecure. And he becomes more of a man when he conquers the heart of a different lady. Considering the fact that I'm in a confrontation with another like an animal, he shows his teeth, he brings out his nail. He combs his hair.
Tú no hueles conmigo, que yo como candela. Tú no hueles conmigo, que yo como candela.
So here I am, outside my house, catching some fresh air. And right before my very eyes, quietly, silently, 1,000 flowers are blooming all around me. I run back inside the house and even the floor is blooming. It's all unusual. New, tender, pink, moist. I give her a kiss and a hug, hello. And above her head, in a glass sky, the moon hangs blue and fragrant, as if hanging from some invisible branch. I point at the moon and say, look, our moon. She looks at the moon and smiles, and then she looks at me and I smile, melting inside. I'm in my room, she's sitting on my bed, I'm on the floor, my arms are on her legs, my head in her lap, and we're both quiet. Silence. I can hear my pulse. I feel that everything that defines me in space is melting, vanishing. I'm a crystal dissolving in her lap. I'm getting smaller, larger, wider off the scale because she's no longer herself. She's the whole universe. And for 1 second, her and my bed and the floor and the blooming flowers of our love shot through the sky and hit the moon with joy.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera.
He was last seen walking alone with her, not fearing her danger. Now the sun from tower to tower, the hammers. He would say to her, flirting and walking with Lady Death, and she would listen. Because yesterday in my verse, I heard the clappings of her bony palms, and you gave eyes to my song and an edge to my tragic life. I will sing to you the flesh you don't have, your missing eyes, the red lips that used to get kisses. Today from here forth, my sweetness, death of mine, oh how good with you alone, with these blowing winds of Biscayne, Key Biscayne.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera.
The village of Key Biscayne, thank you so much.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Good night.
Thank you to everyone who sponsored us. Our Poets in the Park series, second season of the Key Biscayne Poetry Share. I want to thank the Village of Key Biscayne, the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, and the Islander News. Thank you to Julie, our new special events coordinator, to Richard Perez, who does a lot of the footwork to get this together, Todd, Anna, Roxy, Adriana, David and David, Joan, Frank, Marilyn, Oscar and Trio, to all the helpers out there, Susie, Annie, Maria, Dieter, Connor, Christopher, Terry, and Bo. And special and enormous thanks. Where's Andrew? Andrew, it was his brainchild, the Poets in the Park series. And he just, gives me so many ideas and so much guidance. Husband Rick, he is amazing. He supports my volunteerism so that I can spread the love. I dedicate my work to Rick and to my two kids, Suzette and Patrick. I'd like to thank Key Biscayne for coming out.
Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera.